One train, the Walter E. Disney. Black and white is what it looked like when we first got it. This is what it looks like now. The Walter E. Disney is known as a 10-wheel, a real configuration 460. It was built at the Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1925 and actually has a twin brother, our number 3 train, the Roger Brogy. They were built side by side in Philadelphia at the same time and have sequential serial numbers. We are the only company in the world that have what they call twin steam locomotives. Over this way. This is our number 2 train, the Lily Bell. Now if you have a wife and you can afford trains, all her life you named trains after her and she could have cared less. But the Lily Bell is what's known as a mogul, wheel configuration 260. It was also built at Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1928. It is our youngest or newest train, is the same age as Mickey Mouse. Now, you won't get an opportunity to see Lily Bell. She's away being refurbished. It's gone almost 2 years. We're hoping to get her back soon. All of our trains have their own personality, and the Lily Bell is all woman. She hates female engineers at her controls. She will balk, act up, blow the fire out, not want to go anytime there's a female engineer at her controls. If for some reason we have to switch cars, every train has its own cars that it tows probably 95% of the time. If we have a mechanical breakdown and have to switch cars, Lily Bell will tow Walt's cars like a good girl. But if we hook Roy's or Roger's, again, she balks, acts up, and blows the fire out. Now, it's kind of a Disney secret as to where this train is being refurbished at. Let me just say, if you know anything about rebuilding steam trains, the Lily Bell is relaxing in the hills of Pennsylvania. Okay. I like to say she's away having a spa treatment, and I hope she comes back in a better mood. This is our number 4 train, the Roy O. Disney. Go right around here, folks. The Roy O. Disney is what's known as an American standard. It's a 440. The American standard is known as the train that won the West. If you ever see any old black and white cowboy movies, if there's a train in it, it's an American standard. This is our oldest train. It was built in 1916. It is actually the oldest thing in the park. The second oldest thing is our carousel on the other side of the castle. It was built in 1917. Also at Baldwin Locomotive Works in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now when the names for the trains came across Roy's desk, in the early 60s, middle 60s, he approved the first 3. He approved Walter, Lily, and the Roger. He would not approve the name Roy O. Disney. He said it would be conceited for him to name a train after himself, especially since he was still alive. And besides, there were people that worked for the company that really deserved that honor. When we first got our trains, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, it took 22 months to refurbish those first 3. The American standard needed quite a bit more work, and I assume was kind of less the last, and didn't arrive here until just after Christmas, 1971, 1 week after Roy passed away, and it was named the Roy O. Disney. Our number 3 train, the twin, for our number 1 train, the Walter. Built in 1925, Baldwin Locomotive Works. Roger Brogy was our very first Imagineer. Imagineers are the engineers, designers, creators responsible for all of our attractions and our parks. Roger was a mechanical genius. He could build anything and did build everything. Roger was assigned building of the railroad at Disneyland. He actually built engines out there in the studio shop from scratch.
Wow.
Still out there running today. He also built Walt's backyard steam train. It's called Live Steam. He has many patents for movie cameras, movie equipment, things like that that are used in the industry. Now our railroad here is what's called narrow gauge. In other words, the rails have 36 inches between the two rails. Standard gauge distance is 4 feet 8 1/2 inches. Our main line is 1.5 miles long. We have a spur line that goes back to the roundhouse, which you'll get to see in a little while. It takes 20 minutes to make one complete rotation. Now we are not a big railroad. We have 3 stations, but we are very busy. Last year we carried 3.5 million people. Put that into perspective, last year the Grand Canyon had 3.8 million visitors for the year. We carried almost everyone that visited the Grand Canyon. Now our stations are here at Main Street, at Frontierland, and back at Fantasyland. When we're running 2 trains, a train comes into the station every 7 minutes. When we're running 3, the train comes into the station every 4 minutes. 3 is the maximum number of trains that we can run and maintain the Disney required safety distances between the trains. We have a special system to take care of that, which we will go into as we go through the tours later on when we come back from the roundhouse. Now when the trains come into the station, the conductors have 2.5 minutes to unload the train, reload the train, and send it on its way. When the train stops, the engineer has a stopwatch, and he starts the stopwatch. At the end of 1.5, and 2 minutes, he gives a single toot on the whistle to keep conductors aware of the timing. At 2.5 minutes, he gives 2 toots. At that point, the conductors have to close the gates, and then they turn around and stand with their arm up like this in the hold position. It's done for several reasons. So the engineer knows that he heard the whistles, because sometimes some of the stations are very busy, you really don't hear the whistle. Also, in case the conductor on the back hasn't heard, he knows the whistle's been given. The conductor on the station makes sure that there's no one on the station. The train's not allowed to move if there's someone on the station that's not properly trained. He looks on the train to make sure everyone is seated, to make sure there's no small children on the outside where there's no safety rail. When he's sure it's safe for the train to leave, he comes with his arm forward, says board. The conductor on the back says all aboard. He then has a little switch that connects to the cabin. He gives 2 buzzes. In other words, answering the 2 toots from the engineer. Okay. Without both the audible, the whistle buzzer, and the visual, the hand signal, the train is not allowed to move. Okay. Now, when we first we're going to build Disney World here, Walt Disney World. Roger Broggie was looking for trains. He could not find any trains anywhere that were not already owned by a museum or a historical society. One of our cast members happened to be on vacation in Mexico. We were in Mexico in the Cozumel area. He stumbled across the boneyard, the junkyard for the United Railways of Yucatan. When he got back to California, he wrote a report, sent it to Roger Broggie. Roger Broggie, having been looking for many years, saw the report and immediately headed for Mexico. When he got to Mexico, he said, it was unbelievable. He said it was like a virtual museum of antique steam trains. The only problem was, some were laying on their side over there, upside down. It was the junkyard. The United Railways of Yucatan were converted to diesel, so they were junk to them. Roger Broggie approached the railroad officials and tried to buy trains. He was told by them, I can't sell you any trains. It's against Mexican law to export machinery. So he talked with them a little longer, very convincingly, I'm sure, because they changed their mind. They decided to sell them.
Kodak moment.
So they decided to sell them. They decided they're really not exporting machinery. They're sending these trains back to the United States where they come from. So Roger went around and picked out the 4 that you see here. He paid $8,500 for each train with a tender. When he got done with his purchase, the railroad official said, "We have one more we'd like to sell you. We'll make you a heck of a deal on it. Get him in out front on a podium being used as a sign." They said $750. Roger said, "Well, I don't want to upset him, keep him happy." Didn't even go look at it, he bought the train. When he got it back here to the United States, he went and looked at it, said it was held together by 30 coats of paint. Didn't even try and refurbish it, they gave it to an auctioneer and sold it off. Once he got done making his purchase and paid for him, he said, "I'll arrange for a train to come down and pick up my purchases." He said, "Boy, no sooner were the words out of my mouth than I could tell by the look on their faces that I had upset them." And they said to him, "No, that will not be necessary. We're a fine, dependable railroad." Roger's thinking, well, Mexican reputation. But he agreed, because again, he needed lots of parts that he wanted to buy. So the day the trains were scheduled to go back to the United States, a nice brand new looking flatbed railroad train showed up. They had painted it the night before, the paint was still sticky. They had made logos 3 times the standard size, attached to every car. They wanted the world to know where Walt Disney was getting his train. They loaded the trains, then they put armed guards on each car, because they had about 200 miles of jungle to travel through. They didn't want the banditos coming out trying to steal the brass off the train. When they got to the United States border, they were transferred to a U.S. railroad and shipped right here to Tampa Bay steamship and dry dock companies. At that time, steamships were kind of like trains. They were on the way out. Roger went in and talked to the foreman there, and he said, "I have 4 steam trains I'd like to have refurbished." The foreman's name was George Britton. He said, "You know, I got to be honest with you. I know everything there is to know about steam. I know absolutely nothing about trains." Roger looked at him and said, "Boy, you're the man for me. If I hire someone that thinks they know about trains, they will refurbish them the way they want to do it. I want it done my way. So we will have either me or my assistant will be here with you all the time to refurbish it." So they agreed. Roger was there. They took them apart, mapped them, made drawings, the whole 9 yards, and refurbished them to have them here in early 1971 for the planned opening of the park October 1st, 1971. By the way, back then, a ticket to the Magic Kingdom was $4.95.
Wow.
So with that little inflation.
Yeah. And probably 200 coats of paint later.
Pardon?
200 coats of paint later.
Well, like I said, he was a mechanical genius, and he felt that it was a lot of work to make those engines in the shop, and then there was no tradition. Disney had become a traditional company. They do a lot of things, which we're going to get into some of them, just because it's tradition and it seems to be the historical thing to do. That's why he wanted old steam trains with a history. Trying to hear where they're at, because when they shoot the fireworks off, I can compete somewhat with the PA system, can't compete with the fireworks.
They test the fireworks this early?
Yeah, they have a little blast that goes off.
Oh. Incoming!
When they drop the rope, now you will get a chance to see the running of the guests. But what happens, you're hearing a countdown here, we have to stay under here.